and this is a competitive racing game where each player is going to be driving their own Formula 1 race car around the board trying to complete a number of laps first. Each player is going to be choosing their driver and team, and each of these are going to come with a special card and their own special abilities, and you'll be able to use those throughout the entirety of the game. Starting positions are determined by dice rolling, but each player is also going to have a number of stats that they're going to be starting out with as well, and if the dice grant you a better starting position, that's going to come at the cost of some of your skill points in order to balance out that advantage. Each player is also going to choose the type of tires that they want to put on their car, and this is all done in secret, and each of the tires are going to come with a different lifespan, as well as allowing you to roll a different colored die. And the reason that's important is because you're going to be rolling these dice to determine how far you get to move, so having a higher range of numbers on your die means that you'll be able to drive just a little bit faster. But there are some other advantages and disadvantages with each of these as well, like with the wet tires allowing you to drive better in the rainy weather. And the weather in this game is determined by a weather board, so you always know what type of weather is coming up, but you're going to be rolling a die to determine if that weather board is going to be progressing to the next space. So even though you know which conditions will be coming up, you never really know how quickly they're going to come. And in each round, each player is going to be taking turns performing their movements, and this always happens with the player in the front going first, and then moving back to the player who is currently in last place. And like I said, you're going to be rolling your die to determine how many movement points you get. Then you'll also be able to spend engine, skill, or brake points in order to move additional spaces. But each of these points work a little bit differently, with the engine points being only usable on straightaways, and the skill points being only usable on turns, so it does depend where you are on the track and the amount of those points that you still have available. Players can also change lanes as part of their movement, but this is most effectively done on turns, because on a straightaway that's going to cost you a whole movement point just to move your car one lane to the side, whereas on a turn you can actually move diagonally, which allows you to move forward and change lanes at the same time. But you can even be more efficient on the turns by following the ideal racing line, which is done by entering the turn on these double arrows, and then that's going to allow you to move through the turn by following these checkered spaces. Of course, this assumes that there's nobody in your way. And if there are players in your way, you're going to have to go around them, which might move you out of that ideal racing line. But as you pass them, they also get to decide whether to just let you pass or to try and fight for position. And when they decide to fight for position, you're going to be rolling dice to determine which player wins that position. But if you are early in your movement, those additional movement points that you haven't used yet are going to count towards your side of that roll. So it gets more difficult to pass another player later in your movement action. Players can also choose to bid their skill points in secret to try and raise the value of their die, but once both players have decided that they no longer want to bid any skill points, then that's revealed and the player with the highest value wins. But if their total value ends up being the same value, then a collision is going to happen, and each player is going to have to roll the collision die, and depending on the outcome of that die, it can have a various amount of effects. And the game continues like this until one player reaches the finish line, and then that player wins the game.